I think the thing that really stands out to me, particularly as I've been talking to people internationally about this debate in Australia, and what's really different here, say from the United States or Great Britain for that matter, I think is industrial relations. And if you talk about security, there's nothing more fundamental than A, getting a job, and then B, having the capacity to keep that job under decent working conditions. And whilst it's true that we've done very well in terms of universal health and education as a driver of long-term social mobility, what really stands out to me is that we've kept the gains in our economic growth largely with the middle and lower income earners over the last few years. Yes, there's been a concentration at the top, but amongst lower and middle income earners, most of our growth has been spread pretty evenly across them. And the factor that distinguishes us, say, from elsewhere in the world is not just the number of jobs created during a difficult period, but the fact that the benefit of that has been shared pretty widely, I think, through a decent minimum wage and also through good collective bargaining arrangements. And that's why I think this debate internationally is missing something. The Brits are concentrating particularly on opportunities in health and education and regulating power prices and issues like that. But I think what's missing there, and perhaps missing in the wider debate around the world, is collective bargaining power and a decent minimum wage. And I've got to say, I'm really surprised when I go to conferences with bankers and they're talking about, you know, problems in terms of demand for credit. Even bankers are standing up and saying, well, what do you expect if millions of people are on a wage that's so low they don't have the capacity to buy a house? So I think from what's going on in Australia, the thing that really stands out, apart from the obvious things, is our industrial relations system, which we've been able to hold in place. And I guess that explains why there's such a backlash against it and why vested interests here, their number one aim isn't just to dismantle universal and quality health and education, it's to rip out the industrial relations system.
Can I just add one other thing? I agree very strongly with that. I've engaged in a lot of discussions with the Scandinavian countries where unions are much stronger than they are even in Australia. And the Scandinavian countries have been very innovative, very dynamic. And part of the story that they believe, at least many of the economists in the Scandinavian countries believe, of their success is strong industrial protection, strong unions, and strong social systems of social protection. And there are two ways that it has, they believe, benefited their growth. So it's been a pro-growth, and it's not just social protection. At least two or three ways that it has benefited their economy. One of them is actually that the effect of these policies has been what you call wage compression, moving wages at the bottom up. And that's incentivized companies to become more productive, to try to think about how they use labor more efficiently. So it's actually, we were talking about productivity. These policies are pro-productivity policies. They motivate firms to think about ways of using labor more efficiently. And so there's a positive productivity cycle. The second thing is that when you have better systems of social protection, people can undertake better risks. And innovation is risky. But if you have good systems of social protection, you know that if you lose, you're still part of an economy in which even the bottom does reasonably well. So that really encourages more risk-taking. And finally, I don't know, some of you may have seen some of the debate that some of my remarks made instigated on where the government spokesman said that investing in poor people was a waste of money. And it was really quite astounding statement. I view it as an investment, that money goes, and the worst problem is poverty, childhood poverty. And if children grow up in poverty, they're likely to be less productive in the future. And therefore, your growth is going to be weaker. And if you don't have adequate nutrition, adequate health, but also adequate income. It just affects the whole generational productivity of society. So I view those investments, those welfare expenditures, which, as you say, are targeted, but they're not living off the hog. I mean, you look at the standard of living they're getting. It's not. No one chooses to be at that bottom because of the welfare benefits that they're getting. I think it's an important part of investment in society.